What's up, everybody? Welcome to Reviews by Hunter. That's me. I'm Hunter. And today I have a really cool review for you. This one is for a movie that is not officially released yet. It is for The Life of Chuck. I saw it yesterday at a Mystery Movie Monday at my local theater. So I actually went into this movie completely blind. I had no idea what movie I was going to see until the title popped up on the screen. And I hadn't even really heard about this movie beforehand, didn't see the trailer, completely blind. Ended up being a great surprise. Also, I know I'm not in my usual filming spot, but I just really wanted to talk about this movie, full disclosure. I've also had 2 strawberry margaritas today, so if that bothers you, I understand. Having said that, no notes in front of me, let's get into it. The Life of Chuck. It's directed by Mike Flanagans. It's based off a short story by Stephen King, though. And it's also written by Mike Flanagans. So he directed and wrote this film. I think the film comes in a little under 2 hours, like around 1 hour, 50 minutes. And this was great. This was great. It has Tom Hiddleston in it, who plays Chuck. Some other people that I recognize. Mark Hamill plays Chuck's grandfather. Really, the entire cast was just wonderful. Like, everyone did great. I think it's Cody or Colby Flanagan plays young Chuck in this movie. That's Mike Flanagan's son. I actually looked it up. He does a great job. He did an awesome job, man. So what is The Life of Chuck? Well, it is a science fiction drama fantasy movie that is about the life of Chuck, Charles Krantz. Okay, now the movie, there will be spoilers in this movie, by the way, is actually broken up into 3 different acts. Okay, so on the screen, Act 3 is the first thing that comes up. And the movie actually worked its way backwards. So we start in this world where the world seemingly is ending. There's a school teacher teaching at a school in the opening scene, and all of a sudden the internet stops working, right? And then come to find out, like, there's natural disasters going on in different states around the United States, in different parts of the world. The food population is getting wiped out. Like, every single day, seemingly the world is coming closer to the end. You have a scene where the power completely goes out. There's another scene where he's watching TV and his TV goes out. This first act, well, Act 3, you really are still not sure what the story is. You don't know what's happening yet. And I got very heavy Black Mirror vibes in Act 3, right? Felt very dystopian. Things are not as they seem. I was trying to figure out what genre of movie this was in Act 3, because it was giving me little flavors of being a horror film, but then not really, but then being science fiction, or maybe a comedy, or a family drama. Like, I was getting all these different flavors, and I didn't know which one it was. But Act 3 is very depressing. It's very depressing because the world is ending, and people are just having to come to the acceptance of it. At one point, there's a giant sinkhole opens up in the ground. We don't see it. It happens off screen, but you have characters talking about it. And so traffic is terrible. You see like a herd of people. They're walking to work. They're walking miles to work because the traffic is so bad. You have cars that are piled up on top, like not on top of each other, but there's so much traffic that people have to walk everywhere. And you see this one guy with a suitcase walking around, and he just looks at his suitcase, throws it on the ground, and then just leaves it. He's just kind of giving up on life. And there's also a scene where, and I wish I had my notes in front of me, but one of the main actors goes and he walks like miles and miles to go see his ex-wife. And they're watching the stars together. And they're looking up at the stars, and all of a sudden, they see a planet explode in the sky. Then they see a star explode in the sky. Then they see another star explode in the sky. All of a sudden, literally like thousands, hundreds of stars and planets are just exploding and dying in front of them. The ex-wife looks at him and is like, I'm scared. And he's like, yeah, me too. And he looks at her and he says, I love you. But before he can actually say you, like he says, I love, and then it cuts out. And the screen just goes dark. And that's it. Like, it was such a depressing first act of the movie. And it just felt very much like, oh, okay, so we're getting into, you know, the finality of just the end of things, the end of everything, of death, and waiting for it to happen. They're literally watching the universe explode in front of them, and then that's it, and the screen goes black. But then that takes us to Act 2. Act 2 gives us more insight to what was going on in Act 3. Turns out, oh, I forgot to mention that as this is happening, the only thing that keeps popping up for these characters is billboards of Charles Krantz and posters, and it just says, thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Charles Krantz. A great 39 years. None of the characters know who Charles Krantz is. They're asking each other, do you know who Charles Krantz is? No, I have no idea. This must be a meme, must be a joke, right? So the official Chuck himself doesn't physically appear in Act 3, which brings us to Act 2, where we do find out that Chuck is on his deathbed. He's dying, and he's 39 years old, and he has a tumor, I believe a brain tumor. And so we start going back in time into sort of, well, the life of Chuck. And Act 2 is a bit more joyful, though. I think Act 2 was called Busking for Life, or Busking Forever. There's this woman who is a drummer, a busker. She, like, drums on the side of the street for money. And this leads to a dance musical number with Tom Hiddleston's character Chuck, him, and then another girl that joins him in the dance number. It goes on for quite a while, but it's actually like a big relief to what we saw in the first act. And again, it's a little confusing at first because you're like, well, why is Chuck dancing? And how does he even know how to dance like this, right? And we find that out later on too, that in these flashbacks of Chuck, dancing was a huge part of his life growing up. His grandma taught him how to dance and taught him how to, I think, enjoy life through dance. And Act 2 was really just like, because he's like a businessman. He's well, he's not a businessman, he's an accountant. And he's kind of walking by the girl that's doing the drumming, and he stops. And he just slowly starts getting into it, and yeah, man, it was actually like a lot of fun watching that all play out. And mostly I remember Act 2 as being him enjoying life. There's a narrator throughout the film, and the narrator says something along the lines of, you know, sometimes Chuck wondered why God even created the universe. Referring to it as, you know, because sometimes life can be hard, depressing, difficult, overwhelming. And then it says, but sometimes Chuck wonders why God created the universe, and he believes that it was for moments like this, but just this. That being the moment where he just wanted to dance, like in his full suit and everything. And it's just like a very joyful experience. It's a very joyful moment in this movie where we now know that this dude is going to die, or that he is dying. At this point in the film, it's clear he doesn't realize, I think the narrator even says, Chuck doesn't realize he's dying yet, but he's starting to get headaches. He's starting, like, during the dance number, he starts to get a headache, and he's like, oh no, I'm fine, right? Now, so we think that he doesn't know that he's dying. Okay? Everything in this movie is connected. Every act is connected. Every character is meaningful in some way. There's no wasted dialogue. It's a very dialogue-heavy movie, by the way. There's a lot of monologues. One by Mark Hamill's character that was so good, so good. But I loved it. I love these like deeper meanings of life type of movies, okay, that end up being like a feel-good movie. Like, I walked out of the theater feeling like I feel good, but it started off so grim. And Act 1 is mainly dealing with Chuck's childhood. We find out that Chuck, his parents, including a pregnant mother with they were gonna have a baby girl, they slid off an ice patch on their way back home, and they passed away. The mom, the dad, and the baby that she was carrying. So Chuck has to live with his grandparents. And we see that at first, the entire house is sad, obviously. They just lost their family. The grandmother isn't doing the things she loves anymore. The grandfather is sort of drowning himself in alcohol. The grandfather, played by Mark Hamill. And it's sad. Until eventually, the grandmother starts finding a little bit of happiness, and she shares that with a young Chuck. And she teaches him dance. There's a nice little montage of them dancing around in the kitchen while she cooks food, and they watch all these different films that have to do with like musicals and dancing, and watch that together. We also see young Chuck develop his first crush. Because his grandmother instilled that love of dance in him, he joins this after-school program called, I think, Twirlers and Spinners. And that's where he finds his first ever crush, Kate. And Kate's an 8th grader, and she's a foot taller than him, and he's only in 6th grade. But he loves dancing with Kate, right? And he's the best dancer in class, right? And so the first act made me feel like it was almost a coming-of-age story. And again, such a 180 from the first act. When I say first act, let me clarify that. The last act that we see, because the movie's working backwards. So Act 1, but the last act that we see, it connects to the other two so well. We also see in this Chuck like experience his first ever kiss, and he's just experiencing life. Like, that's what this movie is we just watch Chuck experience the negatives of life, the very hardest parts, losing his parents. He also loses his grandparents. They both die. There's also this room in Chuck's grandparents' house, the upstairs room. You're not supposed to go inside of it. And his grandparents, the only thing they tell him is, well, you can't go inside of it because the floor is rotting. Well, turns out that this is where we get into some of the sci-fi element, right? That room is a room where the grandfather is able to see how somebody is going to die. It shows him how different people within their community died before it happened. And it also ends up showing him his own death. And he tells Chuck, you can never go in here, right? And of course, Chuck's a kid, he's curious. And when the grandfather passes, he gets all of his belongings, including the key to this upstairs room that he's never supposed to go in. And of course, what does he do? He goes inside of it. And at first, it's just an empty room. There's nothing in there. There are no belongings in there. There's no storage. There's no paintings, posters. It's empty. And then all of a sudden, you hear this beeping. And young Chuck sees his adult self in a hospital bed, and he just hears the beeping of, his heart. And he sees that he's gonna die in the future. Doesn't know how old he's gonna be. Doesn't know how. He just knows he's going to die. But another big thing in this movie is that we contain multitudes. A teacher taught him that when he was in school, when he was a kid, that we contain multitudes. That everything within our mind, everything in our head is a living, breathing part of us. Every memory that you've ever had, every person you've ever met, every experience, every bad memory, every good memory has its own universe that lives within you and that lives through you. Which I think is this is a very thought-provoking movie. Because it got me thinking. In that Act 3 that we first see, the universe that's dying, it technically wasn't real, but it was real within the mind of Chuck. And it's asking this question of, well, what happens when you pass away? Do all of these experiences and lived moments and people that you met, does all of that die with you? The movie does not directly answer the question. It kind of leaves you to answer it for yourself. I took it as, maybe it does. Maybe it does all die with you because they're your memories, and it's your everything that you've lived and experienced is within your head, the universe, and your own mind that you've collected throughout your life. Maybe it does fade away, like we saw all of the stars fading out, right? And then it just ends. And it's final. And however, why did I feel happy by the end of this movie? Well, because Chuck reminds us that there's still joy to be found in life. Young Chuck saw himself on his deathbed, and yet he still chooses these moments like we see to just dance and be joyful and be happy in life and to love himself. He has a quote that says, I am wonderful and I deserve to be wonderful. He actually says this to himself after he sees himself on his own deathbed. Because eventually, so he sees himself and then he says that I am wonderful though, and I deserve to be wonderful, right? And that ghost of him, the future ghost of himself disappears. And I took it as, you know what? Even if you could look into a crystal ball and see your own death, does that mean you shouldn't love life? And does that mean you shouldn't experience all the different things of life and be wonderful and dance and live? And like I said, I can give you this review. Other people can give you this review. This movie is an experience. You've got to experience this movie. And okay, before I talk more about it, that final shot in the movie is just of the empty room, and you just see the sunlight just beaming through, and that's it. The credits roll, and it leaves you with that image in the background, and you're just left to sit there and think about life. It hit me so hard, man, when I saw it, and I did sit there for a good couple minutes just looking at this image, and I was like, holy, this movie just felt like warmth. It ends up feeling like a feel-good movie, but it's not your traditional feel-good movie. It does such a 180 from the beginning, and even though it's listed as sci-fi fantasy, it definitely feels like multiple genres in one, but they all blend together really well. And when I say sci-fi, really, it's sci-fi drama, okay? Mostly we get that from this room that contains the ghosts of people that are going to die and how they die. I guarantee not everybody will love this movie because it's very dialogue heavy. You have a monologue by Mark Hamill's character who plays the grandfather. It was so good. Sorry, it was so good, and of course it is because it's Mark Hamill. And he's just talking about, literally his whole monologue is about math. He's talking about how math is so beautiful because it's in everything we do. He says every job you have includes math. How many hours in a day? How do we know how long a week is? Like, all these different things. He's just going on and on about math. But the way Mark Hamill delivers it I was like, should I be like a rocket scientist or something? I should go do like some math equations or something. And keep in mind, the grandpa's an accountant, so he loves math, and he's telling him how, when he's doing his work as an accountant for people, he can figure out the story of their life through numbers. It's a really interesting monologue that's given by Mark Hamill. This movie, I've looked up some different reviews on it. There's some critics that keep using the word masterpiece. That's a big word. Is it a masterpiece in my opinion? It's really close. It's really, really close. I think I said on my YouTube short that I give this movie a 9 out of 10. I think the only higher rating I've given a movie is Sinners. This is sneakily one of the best films of the year. And I really, really want people to go see this. It just makes you feel optimistic. It just makes you feel optimistic about life in general. And that, like death, it's gonna happen. And waiting for it to happen could be excruciating, it could be torturous, but there's also this beauty to life in that we contain multitudes, and that we deserve to be wonderful, and that we are wonderful, and that whether you believe in God or not, I love that quote about, maybe, God created the universe for moments like this. Well, what was that moment during the movie? It was a moment of just pure shared happiness and unashamedly just being themselves, dancing in the middle of the street. It brought all these different people together to watch and clap for them. It was really, really fun to watch this movie, but I know not everybody will love it because it is dialogue heavy. There's not action in this movie. It's sci-fi, but there's not spaceships or aliens or anything like that. But it just takes you through kind of like this emotional roller coaster, man. And I felt really depressed at the start. And then by the end, I was like, oh, everything's gonna be okay though. Really, really good movie. It's really well directed. Just everything is connected. Like I said before, when you watch Act 3, you're not sure what's happening exactly until you watch Act 2. And then, now you understand why this connects with that. And that's why he remembered this character as being this person from his life in the past, and that's what, and now this person lives within his multitudes. And oh man, there's so much I want to say about this movie. I don't want to make this, a 45-minute thing, but really, really enjoyed this one. Like I said, I don't have notes in front of me, so I don't even know the budget of this. It's not even officially released. This releases as the time that I'm making this video in 3 days. My theater was pretty packed. For it being a mystery movie, it was pretty packed. But everybody seemed pretty engaged. I really didn't see anybody on their cell phones. I think as of now, it has an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. But like I said, is it a masterpiece? The reason I just didn't give it a 10 out of 10, which would be a masterpiece for me, is I did want to see more of adult Chuck, other than the huge musical dance number. We see the universe within his head, within his own mind. We see young Chuck, and we see him growing up. We see him as both a child and as an adolescent, right? And we're watching this kid grow up without parents and eventually without grandparents. He's experienced the hardest parts of life you could experience, but he was also taught how to embrace the more beautiful parts of life as well. But we don't see a lot of adult Chuck. We don't see a lot of Tom Hiddleston's character. He's on the poster. He's I guess the leading man, even though, like I said, I feel like he's just more the representation of what this movie wants you to feel. And it's more of an ensemble effort as far as the cast. The cast as a whole does an amazing job. I just wanted to see, because I wasn't sure if Chuck, adult Chuck, was he happy in life? After seeing his own death, we know he goes on to become an accountant, just like his grandfather, but I wanted to see if he was scared. Was he scared of the oncoming, the incoming finality of his own death, that he doesn't know when it's going to happen? Was he joyful? The only, read you get on him is that he's kind of just he's a quieter, polite, well-meaning individual. And I think I think this movie, maybe, I know it's under 2 hours. They could have maybe made it a little longer. I would have loved to see them dive into that a little bit more. Okay? But otherwise, I mean, this is as close to a masterpiece as I've seen in 2025. That's for sure. And like I said, it's just got a little bit of that mystery in it. It does have a little bit of the sci-fi. It has a little bit of this family drama. There was even bits of comedic relief that my theater was laughing at pretty hard, and so was I. And just seeing this guy live, that's the movie. We watch him live. And somehow, it ends up being a beautiful movie. That's really all I got to say about it, man. 9 out of 10. If you guys have ever seen the movie Secondhand Lions, another really, really good, feel-good movie. I've rewatched Secondhand Lions like 10 times in my life. It gives me that similar feeling, like a feel-good movie. Something I want to watch again, for sure. I would go back to watch this in theaters, for sure. I loved this movie, man. I loved it. It's one of those movies that you might be like me and be sitting in the theater afterwards just thinking about life. And yet, I hope you feel the same way I did, which is that everything's going to be okay, and that you are wonderful, and you deserve to be wonderful. And don't forget that you contain multitudes. So that's all I got for today's review of The Life of Chuck. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Let me know any other movies you want to see me review in the future. Leave a like, subscribe if you do enjoy this content. I'd love to hear your comments, and have a great day.